Hey, panel, thanks for joining me.
Always a pleasure.
Good to be
There
here.
is only one topic, but we will try and tease out three over the course of the next half hour or so. The one topic is what did Ronald Reagan really think about tariffs? And is it any of our business pointing it out? Um, let's start with you, Allison. Were these Ford ads a good idea? And what the hell is the government of Canada supposed to do now? Now that Donald Trump has decided he doesn't like it.
I mean, in my opinion, probably not a great idea. I think we've seen that poking the bear in his favorite forum, which is the air war, is not always the best idea. We've tried that before. It's never been successful. And look, there's one benchmark for success with the United States right now. It's tariffs going down, not tariffs going up. So, I'm sort of left wondering if this was a master plan that was choreographed between Mark Carney and Doug Ford with the good cop, bad cop situation, or whether they're just not talking to each other. Either way, I don't think it's been successful. So I'm going to go, for $75 million of taxpayers' money, probably not a great idea.
Okay. Uh, Marci, what do you think?
I'm going to largely agree with Allison, but a few additional points to consider. For me, like the ads are really good ads, and I want to salute the creative agency that came up with the concept. I would strongly recommend the Democratic National Committee take a look at their work. Perhaps they should be running ads akin to that and borrow the script for a subnational government in Canada. Not only to run ads promoting their jurisdiction, which is actually fine and I think very acceptable, laudable, and I think that Ontario has run some very compelling ads in this regard in recent months. But for a subnational government in a moment such as this to do exactly as Allison said, to poke the bear in a way in which you know the bear is going to respond, really for me raises the ultimate question of who speaks for the Federation and why would a province be pushing the boundaries at this moment when we are led to believe, and from very good sources close to the talks with the Americans, that we were actually quite close on a number of sectoral reliefs for sectors that are hurting, for workers that are hurting, to now throw this into the abyss. I don't actually believe this is just a hardline tactic. I am going to take Trump at his word right now that he does not want to talk to Carney for a while. This is not great. Allison raised the question of what's the plan from here. Well, first and foremost, I think the plan needs to be that Ottawa needs to devote as much time now to tending to the shop internally within the Federation as it has been spending in Washington, and to try to get everyone back on the same songbook, like immediately. If another province had done this, maybe if Alberta, I mean, Alberta would be unlikely to because they're more aligned, let's say, with some of Trump's policies. But if Alberta had gone out and run an ad campaign of this sort, poking Trump in the eye, the chattering class and all of central Canada would have been enraged that Alberta was once again out of line, out of step.
Hmm.
And here with Ontario, we're getting a bit of a mixed message. Okay, Captain Canada, elbows up. This is what we all said we were going to do. But the reality at the end of the day is it is Canada that needs to run this negotiation. No one else. I don't want to go all British North America act on us right now, but like in terms of who's who and who's on first is Mark Carney. And Doug Ford has just interfered with that pretty considerably. So not a good endeavor at the end of the day. And like I said, Ottawa now needs to get the Federation back in line real quick because the Americans take notice. And whether or not they're trying intentionally to divide and conquer, they have succeeded in doing so right now.
Garry, what do you think?
I'm going to Mackenzie King this a bit, conscription of necessarily, but not necessarily conscription. And it is a bit of an echo of what we've heard so far. Look, I think the ads are very good. And I think that is a decent message. It's the timing, of course, which is the question of it. And it's been really interesting. I deal with clients right across the country and listening to the reaction of people from across the country. It's funny, in Western Canada, my clients there are appalled by this ad. They think it is the most reactionary, outrageous ad. What is he doing? This guy in Ontario. When we talk to more people in Ontario, they tend to be like, yeah, punch the bully in the nose. So it's really interesting watching the reaction of Canadians. I take the point too that anytime tariffs are going up and not down is not a good day for Canada. And I think it just also talks to about the level of coordination. And this is a holdover going back to last year when Justin Trudeau was still prime minister, because the Liberals were in that sort of chaotic state where they were, in leadership crisis, and nobody was really standing up to advance the cause for Canada. Premiers stepped into the mix, and obviously that has changed now. New prime minister, a different, still a Liberal government, but different style of leadership. But provincial power and premiers are still flexing their muscle. So I think that is all very interesting to throw into the mix as well. The intended audience, like on Monday, Trump said he saw the ad and didn't think much of it, it seemed like. And Thursday, all of a sudden, he's reacting. I wonder what's going on behind the scenes in the negotiations. Is there something that Canada couldn't give, and he's using the ad as an excuse? That doesn't excuse doing the ad because that you're giving the opponent a chance to increase tariffs. That's not a good day. But again, who is the audience for this? Yes, the audience was certainly for Donald Trump and Republican leadership. But there's I think a great deal of people in Ontario who this ad was for as well, to say, like, yeah, this guy is standing up for it. And look at Doug Ford's approval ratings in Ontario. They're still through the roof. So there's a lot going on here behind the scenes to unpack. It's still got to play itself out. But again, being in the deep freeze for a timeout isn't a great place to be.
So I'm amazed at you all. I don't like to upset anyone. I don't think it's a good thing when people, we're shouting at each other across the border. But I'm wondering what piece we thought we were going to be buying. Does anyone believe that if they'd come out on the weekend and announced a grand deal on energy, aluminum, and steel, that Donald Trump would feel at all constrained from blowing that fucking deal up 3 weeks down the line at the first whim? Say he doesn't like something I write on Substack. Say he doesn't like something Scott Reed says on Twitter. We're right back in the dump. And meanwhile, as one notionally free speech jurisdiction speaking to another, Article 1 of the Bill of Rights and Article 2 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms says right there we're allowed to say what we think. I think Canadians are within their rights, which they are in present danger of losing their rights if we adopt a let's hide and hope he won't hit us policy. They're within our rights to say, there was once an American who said, don't do this. And he was right. Discuss.
So just really quickly, so I take your point entirely, and I am not at all here suggesting that this should be a policy of appeasement. And in fact, I think that anything that we say and any of our leaders want to say out loud, if that's what they believe is in the best interest of their populations, absolutely they should be saying. Where I'm drawing a distinction, I guess, in my analysis is Ontario and Canada have been in lockstep, presumably over the course of these discussions. And if for some reason they weren't, then then that's probably ultimately Ottawa's responsibility if they haven't brought the provinces in neatly enough into the tent. And I think we have some anecdotal evidence that perhaps the Carney government has been holding the cards pretty close, not bringing stakeholders in at the appropriate moments, et cetera. And that's on Ottawa to resolve. But my point here is, if they were working in concert and Ontario understood that there was some progress on some tariffs, at least for now, that matter a heck of a lot to Hamiltonians and others who are really hurting from these absolutely sky-high tariff rates right now, any form of relief, even if short-lived, would have been welcome, I assume. And the fact that that is now not on means that the hurt just continues. That pain locker is just they're stuck in it.
Marci, I don't know whether your liberal sourcing is as good today as it was a year ago, but do you have any information about whether the Carney PMO was sideswiped by these ads? Did they Do you know whether they saw them coming?
I don't have precise information on that, and if I did, I probably wouldn't share it here. But I would say that certainly the Americans have not been shy about their concerns about the ads, and that didn't just happen overnight. I mean, Americans have been making that point. Americans who actually want to see some resolution on the talks have been making the point all around the town that they're probably, they probably should avoid this particular tactic at this moment. So I can't imagine the government didn't have a sense that it wasn't going to play. And if they were sideswiped by Ontario again, if that were the case, I'm not suggesting it, then there is too much. Then there is too much gap between those leaders, which I find hard to believe, given how the bromance between Carney and Ford has shaped up over the fall.
Okay. Allison, a lot of this is predicated on the idea that Carney's got the ball and Carney should have the ball and Carney should be given a lot of latitude to run. But at some point, does that hourglass not run out of sand? I mean, he gave a nationally televised address last week. He seemed to have spent about a minute and a half rehearsing that thing, and the speechwriter seems to have spent about a minute and a half writing it. And we're now most of a calendar year into Trust Carney, and I haven't had a decent situation report from him or his or Dom LeBlanc or his clerk of the Privy Council, who lives in Washington now.
Right.
At some point, sorry, I'm supposed to be asking the question, not telling you what my answer is. But is Carney's gangplank starting to get a little shaky?
I think it was Garry who said there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and I think that explains a lot of where Carney is right now. Normally in a trade negotiation, there's a lot more information coming out because it's a whole department negotiating it. The public service is involved. All the other departments are pulled in, and if you're in Ottawa, you get quite a bit more information when there's a real trade negotiation happening. Right now, this is being handled by the Prime Minister's office. What's also being handled by the Prime Minister's office is our budget, which is overdue. I would say on both of those things, I haven't really seen where Carney is going to land on, environmental issues, on natural resources, on the United States. I have very grand ideas that we want to, swing for the fences, but that is going to require a lot of pain and application. It's going to require an entirely new public service culture. So I'm kind of thinking we just don't have the visibility yet. And my question when it comes to USMCA, when it comes to the United States, when it comes to our domestic industrial policy plan is that I just haven't really seen a lot. And I don't get the impression that even the public service or departments have seen a lot. So at some point, political communication is going to really matter for Carney because I think he's been given quite a bit of goodwill, and I think he has proven himself to be quite steady and calm at the wheel, but he's going to have to make decisions soon. And how is his caucus going to understand those decisions? How are they going to communicate them on budget week? There are going to have to be bold choices made soon. It can't just be this very high level leadership, to your point on the speech. So, I'm waiting to see that. And I guess my biggest issue right now is just strategy with the United States. What feels good to Canadians, getting our elbows up, isn't necessarily what is going to work and what's going to change Donald Trump's mind. What will change Donald Trump's mind is setbacks in his own economic policy, in his own industry, and having his own people come to him and say, this isn't working and you're going to fail. It's not a Super Bowl, or sorry, not Go Sports. It's not a World Series ad. So I just don't see the strategy there.
Garry, what did you make of the speech last week, and what do you make of sort of the pre-sale servicing of this budget in general? It's a new government, but theoretically, a lot of them know what they're doing. Are they making the case for are they preparing public opinion for the decisions that are going to be announced next week?
It's a great question because I think the Prime Minister might think that, but the evidence is not that case at all. Even in the lead up to the speech last week, I was talking internally, talking to a bunch of people. I said, Is this an actual address to the nation where you would have like opposition leaders responding, or is this some sort of speech that's being covered? And right up until the speech, nobody really knew what this was, right? Because if you do an address to the nation as a prime minister, there's a formality to it in terms of there's the opposition parties are able to respond, and so Melanie Joly gave a speech, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago in Toronto, where she outlined the same sort of three pillars of the strategy. And this seemed to be just an evolution of that in terms of, I can't even remember what the pillars were. That's how memorable it was.
Yeah.
But, some sort of attempt to create a narrative. And I think that's been the criticism, including from a lot of liberals, is there is no attempt to use political communications, whether it's advertising, whether it's earned media, whatever you have, to advance a narrative here. And I think the prime minister, it feels to me that maybe the prime minister doesn't actually care that much. He's saying, look, maybe the budget is going to be the big thing, and that's going to be where it's at, and it may be a reflection of his management style. But it's pretty hard to sell to the nation when you look at the polling, you look at the issue set, when affordability, cost of living, prices of everything is still those are top issues for Canadians, and the government, they try to, looks like a little bit try to address some of these things, but it's not been clear in any sort of concerted effort where you would see a 4 or 5 different part strategy to and channels to get out a message. So no, I don't think it's been there at all.
Marci, I spent 3 years complaining about the Trudeau PMO's obsession with communications. I'm astonished to find myself suddenly wishing that this PMO would get a bit more obsessed with communications. What do you make of the pre-budget behavior of this government?
I'll use the speech as a focal point. It did feel, as Garry said, it was sort of confusing. It was billed as a live address. I guess not to the nation, although that was not clear until the 11th hour. It felt like a little bit of a scramble. That being said, the speech was an opportunity to hear directly from the prime minister in advance of the budget, and that's not super typical. We tend to hear more from ministers of finance in this space, or ministers of industry. So the prime minister, naturally his own finance minister, we're led to believe in this cabinet, he put himself out there. To Garry's point, not a lot of some rehashing. I likened it elsewhere to a recap of a Netflix episode, but sort of some of the greatest hits over the fall, with a nod to a pretty ambitious goal. As we all know, that won't happen overnight in terms of the diversification of non-US exports to the point of doubling them. So there was something there in terms of some new substance to hook onto, a little bit of a sense of the vision, those 3 pillars. I think, Garry, if I'm keeping score, kind of align with their 3 major machinery changes. One with respect to critical infrastructure projects and a major projects office. The second being the domestic housing supply, and the third being defense and security investments, in coordination with the major spending commitments that have been made to NATO and other allies. So those are sort of 3 big pillars, and then with an overlay of affordability and some retail pieces, and an investor climate that hopefully will become more attractive. I'm not here to sell it, to be clear, but that's what my takeaway was from the speech. So I've got a reasonable blueprint of what to expect in the budget. So to that extent, I think that foreshadowing was helpful. I agree with you though, Paul. It's not a lot of communication. So like I took that away, but I also have sat and written budgets before, so I kind of know what to look for. Would most Canadians have absorbed as much from that one outing? Unlikely. Are the ministers a lot less chatty, even ones who we know quite well, than they used to be? Yes, they are a lot less chatty. So, I mean, you can get away with it this week and maybe next, but if they are not outselling the heck out of this budget, then they're in really deep trouble, I think, come New Year.
And the
Uh,
other thing about that speech, it could have been given in the House of Commons. In fact, because it was at 7:30 at night, if you'd given it in the House of Commons at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the media would have actually had a chance to write about it, and it would have been and covered maybe even broader. Like I say, there was nothing about that speech that couldn't have been given in the House of Commons.
yeah, although, I mean, basically since the later years of Mike Harris, and especially what's his name, the Conservative MP, premier after Mike Harris, Ernie Eves. Was that his name?
Yep.
Holy cow!
Magna budget.
The idea of giving a speech where everyone always expected a speech to be given seems kind of quaint and old-fashioned, right? Like Flaherty started making announcements outside the House of Commons when he was finance minister, and people, for reasons that escape me, people think they get extra points for fleeing the House of Commons when they have something important to say. But I am struck by this element in the discourse that says, now we have to shut all that stuff down because the prime minister's in Asia for 10 days and he gets back just before the budget. I'm thinking, there's a rumor that you've got a finance minister. Maybe he could say stuff. But
Every time he does, he gets contradicted, though.
hey, the House leader's been saying stuff. Steve McKinnon was up on the weekend saying he doesn't think he's got enough votes to pass this budget. Allison, do you buy that?
No, I read the article thinking it might be interesting, and basically the article told me that Steve McKinnon is telling Canadians he has a minority government, which we knew. Yes, he needs support to pass the budget, but I mean, yes, I think that the Liberals are going to be prepared for any scenario, including the budget not passing. But it really didn't. It wasn't much of a story to me.
Okay, Marci, do you think that he's genuinely concerned, or?
No, I don't. At the same time, I think it's a challenge to the opposition. I think everybody understands that Canadians are not interested in an election. The instability, the economic uncertainty that Canadians are feeling really renders this moment as a very inopportune one for an election. And so it shores up for the government, that the opposition, they're throwing the onus over to the other side, and that's pretty normal to say, take the challenge, guys. If you want this, you'll be the ones that have to answer to the public. So I think it's smart politics, but I don't think they're genuinely concerned.
Okay. I wondered whether it was something like in The Bear when they're all in the kitchen and somebody backs up, they say, or when someone walks behind somebody, they say behind. I think it might have been sort of audible telegraphing to people that let's all check our math here because we would hate to accidentally get into an election. Garry, there was a Ecos poll on the weekend that suggested that supporters of every party don't want an election except supporters of the Conservative Party who are like, let's go. What are you hearing? I mean, man, you just fought an election. What are you hearing in Conservative circles about eagerness to have an election?
My feet are still tired. I don't think there's any appetite within the Conservative Party itself in the machinery to hold an election anytime soon. And look, Steve McKinnon was out on Monday of last week, giving the same message about I don't have a dance partner. And this is normal. I think almost every minority government, whether it's Conservative government or Liberal government minority over the last 15 years, anytime you get close to a major confidence, so it's like, well, the onus is on the opposition parties to work with us to find a way forward. So no, I don't find that there's any appetite within the caucus or in the machinery of the party for an election. We know all the reasons why for that in terms of fundraising and dollars and all that. And I suspect at the end of the day, somebody's going to get the parliamentary flu in advance of the budget, and not enough people will show up, and the budget will pass. Or right now would be an opportune time for a parliamentary all-party delegation to Madagascar for a research visit on whatever you may have it to make sure the votes aren't in the House of Commons. So I think they'll get there in some way, shape, or form, whether it's some sort of goodies for one of the opposition parties, whether the Bloc maybe gets something, or whether the NDP gets something. And I said it in another venue. I said, 18 months ago, the price for the NDP support was pharmacare or dental care. It was billions of dollars. Now the price is probably like, well, can we get, $300,000 for the Research Bureau, NDP Research Bureau? I think the math has probably changed that as well. And that the Liberals probably could find a way forward with, a lot less public dollars on the barrelhead.
You know what? Let's bring it in for a landing from that. We could talk all afternoon. I've got a bunch more questions, anyway, we'll save them. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Great to be with you.
Thanks, Paul.